numbers show maybe 12% of the world's population is obese. That's over 1 billion people. Obesity has been put down as a cause of cancer, a cause of Alzheimer's.
They also now are starting to call it type 3 diabetes. Slightly elevated blood sugar over a lifetime is actually causing the form of dementia that we're talking about.
That could be, or being touted as, the biggest medical breakthrough since penicillin.
I'm a type 1 diabetic as well, and my blood sugar has never been better, genuinely, over these last 2 weeks since I've been on.
Hello and welcome back to the Market Edge podcast. This week we're looking at that eternal battle between Ozempic and Mounjaro, the rise of weight loss drugs and what they do to the pharmaceutical industry. But not just that, we're looking at the tariff trade. Do the markets care anymore about tariffs, or have they started to ignore it all?
Yep, this is a super special episode because I am going to be a guinea pig. You're going to have to find out what I mean by that by staying tuned.
So, whether you're watching, listening, whatever it is, like, subscribe, you'll get a new podcast every 2 weeks. But let's start off and get straight into the memes of the week. We'll also look at our winners and losers, but we're going to go for the meme of the week. Now, the meme of the week is actually from Axie this week. David, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah.
Also, thanks for turning up this week.
It's okay, mate.
Cheers.
I really enjoyed my time.
Brilliant.
Abroad on
thanks
holiday.
For leaving us completely in the lurch.
Yeah, while you were here. So,
thanks.
Fantastic. I mean,
anyway,
this.
I'm not bitter about it at all. So that's fine.
The news that last week was that Trump says China's Xi had called him Xi Jinping, obviously the Chinese president, and in fact they denied that this happened. They have been saying that the communication actually hasn't been as the White House has been suggesting, which I think is a bit of a political play.
Someone's saying that Donald Trump's been lying?
Well, you don't know.
No,
this is the thing.
No. I won't have that.
This is the thing with both administrations, though. You don't know actually who is telling the truth.
This is the thing with all administrations.
Yeah, right.
But go on.
No, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. So I think it's kind of a bit of a power play and just a discreditation, if that's a word I don't even know anymore.
Is now.
I just make stuff up all the time. Discreditation of either side's sort of credibility, at the end of the day. That's all we're looking at here. And the meme was of a guy from a documentary kind of based on the Chinese moving into Congo called Empire of Dust. And it's just him going, it's all so tiresome. Because I'm knackered about this tariff stuff. It's so tedious.
But the thing is, right, and this obviously takes us into what we were saying, but the markets are pretty tired of it, right?
Yeah.
The markets don't care anymore. Well, I mean, could we say the markets don't care anymore? I mean, we could say that, and 30 seconds later, we walk out of this room where we're recording and the Dow futures are off 900 points.
Dow? What
Dow,
are you,
S&P,
a
whatever.
70-year-old from trading metals?
No,
I think
you're not, just to say.
Yeah, I think you're right, because last week's price action on equity futures, equity indices futures was pretty strong towards the end.
Actually, S&P's posted like 6 straight days as we speak now, I think.
It's done pretty well.
Yesterday
was an okay close as well. But I think that's what happens when the market's tired of a certain catalyst. You tend to see people that are positioned for a certain catalyst get traded against. So you see markets start shifting up because people are like, well, we need to rebalance now. The market's moved a little bit too far. Then those shorts have to close, shifts the market higher, and that's why you see these turbulent moves. And I think as we're pushing forward now, what we're looking at is a bit of a tedium around the tariff trade. And what the focus, I think, is going to be going forward is macro data. So on Friday, we got NFP, for instance. I think if we get a really surprising number there, either higher or lower, we see volatility kick back in.
I think this is quite interesting because if the numbers are good this week, it's going to ramp up the pressure, which Trump has already put on the Fed. So it ramps up the pressure on Powell to start saying, get back going with your interest rate cuts.
There's 2 ways to think of it. If the number's good, i.e. we get a really, really strong NFP print, I mean, that could largely be inflationary. So,
but there's 2 points here, right? Number one, employment hasn't really suffered in the last few weeks.
No.
It's not. The number's been pretty steady, and we're talking about minuscule changes. But actually, fundamentally, unemployment hasn't really changed in the US. But yeah, of course, it could be inflationary. But this pressure from Trump. This happened last time, right? Last time Trump was in office, he was having a go.
Do you know what the thing is though? Is that he came out last week or the week before, and he was like, "Got no problem with Powell. I'm not looking to fire him." Like, it's just complete nonsense, and this is why the market doesn't really like it. This is why I've always said that Trump's administration is always a trader's market.
Yeah,
because it's literally just up and down. An investor might find it quite difficult unless you're a little bit more active.
Do you know who's been quiet in the last few weeks since all this stuff's happened?
Who's that?
Elon Musk.
He's quitting though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's quitting, but why?
Well, because Tesla posted £399 million net income with the expected dollar, the expected 1.2 billion for Q1. But
do you reckon that shareholders turn around going, could you do us a favour and focus on your actual core business for a little while?
I think it was always going to be, he was always going to depart then, but
Election
possibly,
puppet.
yeah. I think the interesting thing with Tesla, I got long Tesla last week, because it was purely that trade that I mentioned, trading against positions. It was trading at the 200 weekly moving average, and then everyone was like, Tesla's so bad. The bad news comes out of the share price. Everyone had been talking about European Tesla purchases collapsing all around the world. You can't get much worse, and so what happens is that people have already priced in that downside, and you get relief. That's all it is.
Although I do want to point out that Tesla was one of our picks of the year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it down 49%?
I don't care. Everyone expects that volatility in Tesla. That's the thing. And the year's not done. We're only, not even halfway through.
True, exactly. That's why it was a pick of the year, not pick of the first 6 months.
Exactly. And by the end of the year, it's one of those that it's a very, very tough job betting against Tesla over any time frame, because the volatility the implied volatility in it is just massive.
Yeah.
And so you can get really, really quick downshifts and then really quick upshifts.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're still the number one pioneering car company in the world.
Yeah.
No matter what you think of Elon Musk, think about the engineers that he's hired.
Yeah,
think of them rather than the CEO if you don't like him. Tweet of the week is one from me.
Just showcase the fact that you go for breakfast at the Ned, yeah?
Yeah, do you know what? I only had an orange juice and a coffee.
I'll have a tap water, please.
I only had an orange juice and a coffee because of what we're going to speak about.
Okay.
About the weight loss drugs. So,
hold that. What a lead. It's almost like we planned this.
Oh, almost, maybe. I found it quite interesting that there was a Wi-Fi called Citadel Trading Invitational. And basically, I was like, who's ready to make markets against these boys? Which is something you definitely do not want to do.
Sounds like a trading competition. The Citadel Trading Invitational.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Maybe they had a bunch of, 18-year-old weirdos in there trying to
in the Ned, 18-year-old weirdos.
Well, you never know, do you? Worse things have gone on in the city.
Yeah.
So basically, I wanted to highlight my own gratuitous ego here, in the form of the tweet of the week, by basically making a suggestion that Citadel are the best market maker in the world. Is literally what they do.
Present company accepted, of course, with Axie.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And if you try and make markets against them, you're probably going to get quoted worse and lose. I know a guy who actually works at Wintermute, which is a crypto market maker, and he's like, I can see Citadel in the books all day. I hate them. Those were his actual words, because they're so good at what they do. So it's an ironic, sarcastic tweet.
But people,
basically.
Volatility breeds trading opportunity, which means a lot of good places make money and a lot of normal people lose money. So
I mean, Citadel are on a beast of their own, though. I think Ken Griffin's selling a house at like 25% of a loss, and it's just like he doesn't give a hoot.
Well, actually, volatility brings us nicely onto our winners and losers from last week, because
yes,
we did have the VIX. These weren't really picks, were they, last week? We were kind of just talking, or 2 weeks ago. We were talking about, the market chaos which had ensued. And the VIX had gone crazy.
Yep.
That fell. But that was probably going to happen, right? Or not?
Well, what happens with volatility is that...
I suppose it's worth explaining, because it's not just a case of up and down, volatility up.
Yeah,
it's not as simple as that. Otherwise, we'd just all...
The VIX is basically a calculation of a 30-day variance swap on a multitude of S&P 500 strikes on their options. So from that, you can derive what volatility basically is of the overall picture. And so with the VIX, what happens is when it spikes, you tend to see, if you were to picture it in your head, you tend to see candles just go bigger, right? Now, when the VIX comes back down, it doesn't mean that the market can't come back down, but it just means that the candles are getting smaller and smaller, if you like. But yeah, it does effectively signal a reversal if people are short in volatility again, causing the VIX to come down.
Yeah. Other one was dollar yen. Actually, it was dollar yen, and then dollar yen interesting because obviously the dollar index fell last week for the first time, below 100 for the first time in 4 years?
Yeah,
something like that. So a big sell-off there. It's since jumped back up again. But that's we always talk about these things. We're talking about whether the Trump trade or Trump tariff trade, whatever we're calling it this week, but we're talking about whether that's dead or not. These things there's always the move and then reaction, right? You get a move, markets jump back up again above 100. It's still teaching around that though, isn't it?
I think with the dollar index, it's 57.8% euro. So it's a euro trade. I think the euro is a big short up here. It's trading one spot 1.3, I'm not too sure of the precise number at the moment.
It'll be different by the time it goes out.
Well, anyway. And look, there's a big, massive 15-year trend line on the euro. I think we mentioned a couple of episodes ago as well.
Yeah.
One of the big bets that I think is that Europe can't actually do anything with the excess spending coming from Germany. I think it's just going to be a massive administrative bloat, and that will mean that yields come back down, which brings the euro back down versus the US, better growth prospects in the US. And so that interest rate differential is in favour of the dollar. Brings the euro dollar down. Yeah. So that's where we are. It's a regime shift, that's all.
Obviously, we've got this global recession fear. It's probably a bit overblown, right? Are we in global recession territory?
From a trader's perspective, who cares anymore?
Yeah, point.
Because if you look at the Fed's balance sheet still, it's still at what, like 8 trillion, something like that?
Yeah.
If you look at the Japanese balance sheet, it's more relative to GDP. If you look at the Swiss, if you look at the British, if you look at Eurozone, it's all massive. There's so much liquidity out there. So what the market just expects is for everyone just to come in and help. We saw it with COVID. They crashed rates to 0%.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore. Which should tell you something as a trader investor, that the real risk to reward is to really stay long US assets specifically, mainly because that's where the most liquidity is.
Okay, so let's move on to our chart of the week. Now, chart of the week is in pharmaceuticals. It's Eli Lilly. Now, we're talking about, and we said in the intro, it's pharmaceuticals. It's Ozempic versus Mounjaro. Now, current numbers show maybe 12% of the world's population is obese. That's over 1 billion people. Now, and this whole discovery of weight loss drugs or anti-obesity measures, that could be, or being touted as, the biggest medical breakthrough since penicillin. We've got our chart of the week here, which is Eli Lilly. They produce Mounjaro. Now, weight loss drugs have obviously taken the world by storm. They're everywhere. Seemingly get them everywhere. It's huge business. What it does for the share price, what it does for the pharmaceutical industry is one story there. There's the bad press you get behind them, this happens whenever you get any new drug, Remember when we had COVID vaccines? Oh, what's the long-term health side effects, blah, blah, blah. All of these points. But of course, it's not maybe just Ozempic and Mounjaro. There's going to be more. So what's the story?
So I am currently on something because I'm awful at cutting weight called Retatrutide.
Right.
Now, I haven't been hungry in 2 weeks. Genuinely. I'm completely indifferent to food. So I could eat a whole bowl of lettuce and eat a donut. And to me, it would be exactly the same.
Yeah.
It does not matter. Now, Ozempic and Mounjaro are called GLP-1s. So they are antagonists to basically the hunger side. So they stop your stomach from filling easily. So you remain satiated for longer. Now, Retatrutide, made by Eli Lilly, which is why I've got this chart, is firstly not out yet.
Yeah.
So I've got it from
Highly
somewhere special. It's not illegal. It's highly dubious against the
not illegal,
against the
dubious.
legalities. That's all.
Yeah.
And it's a GLP-3. So it does the GLP-1 side, but then two other things as well. So one of them is that it is a glucagon antagonist, and then I can't remember the third one. But I'm a type 1 diabetic as well, and my blood sugar has never been better, genuinely, over these last 2 weeks since I've been on this.
Yeah.
In terms of the difference, when this is released, this is going to be such a major, major, major change to the whole sort of sphere of anything to do with endocrine disease, so diabetes, anything to do with, obesity related diseases, purely because it doesn't just affect that one aspect like Mounjaro and Ozempic does, but it affects the three different ones. So far, I've had zero side effects, but it has only been 2 weeks. I'm down 7 kilograms, which is huge.
So one of the key things about these weight loss drugs is they're not just weight loss, as you're explaining with some of them, and where there's a lot of potential, where we've been reading, is the fact that there could be potential breakthroughs with the likes of Alzheimer's and other diseases, not with these drugs necessarily, but these lead to breakthroughs in these other areas. And that's where, if you're looking at doing some research into these points, especially within pharmaceuticals, obesity has been put down as a cause of cancer, a cause of Alzheimer's, and a plethora of other diseases.
Well, yeah, the interesting point here as well is that they call Alzheimer's, it might be a slightly different term, but dementia is called vascular dementia.
Yeah.
And
it's a form, isn't it? A form of dementia, vascular dementia.
Exactly, but they also now are starting to call it type 3 diabetes, whereby slightly elevated blood sugar over a lifetime is actually causing the form of dementia that we're talking about. And they're kind of correlating it to bad oral hygiene as well.
Yeah.
So older people who have not had, dental access throughout their lives, maybe they've had dentures for a very long time or bad teeth.
Yeah.
That can actually, cause things in the brain, which to me makes sense. I don't know the complete validity of it, but it has been, because I've asked doctors and they've said, yes, there is research going into it. But in terms of that connection
Bad news
between...
if you're in the UK, you just can't get a dentist appointment for love nor money.
In terms of that connection between sort of type 3 diabetes and Alzheimer's, perhaps drugs like, GLP-1 antagonists or GLP-3 antagonists are exactly that bridge that's trying to be made to preventing dementia and things like that. Now, for the UK specifically, that would be fantastic because of the amount that's spent on social care for elderly people.
Yeah.
If they could stop elderly people from having dementia and Alzheimer's, that would change so much, because most of the councils are going bankrupt, since like 70 or 80% of their funding is on social care. That's why your bins only get collected like once, twice a month sometimes. In Birmingham, not at all. I think...
You blaming old age pensioners for my bins not being collected?
No, I'm blaming the structure of our economies and funding on that.
Probably a more PC answer.
And far too much stress or reliance on funding the NHS.
Well, look, we know how much, especially, but not just in the UK, but if you look in the US, you can obviously quadruple these figures. But the amount of money spent on dealing with obesity in across the world through health services is huge. Now, obviously, in the UK, you have the NHS, so that how much of... the number of what's being paid out to deal with obesity in the UK must be absolutely huge. Now, what do these weight loss drugs do to share prices? Now, obviously, our chart of the week is Eli Lilly. We're looking at this share price. I mean, this is a very long-term chart. Of course, it's up and to the right, but it has been for a long time, as a lot of pharmaceuticals have done. But there's obviously huge potential upside for the likes of Mounjaro is Eli Lilly, Retatrutide, as you said. I said that terribly.
Retatrutide.
There you go.
Which is Eli as well.
Is also Eli Lilly. But you've got...
Ozempic, which is Novo Nordisk.
Yeah.
Now, Novo Nordisk is trading at a 50% discount to Eli Lilly at the moment. Not too sure why, but I think Eli is just edging it in terms of innovation. I think Novo Nordisk have had a few troubling issues, not too troubling. Their market cap is still bigger than the Danish
Well,
economy.
Ozempic is the headline drug, right?
Yeah, it's managed
You
to
say
capture,
weight loss drugs, you say Ozempic.
Yeah,
right?
it's managed to capture a lot of attention.
But also that you get that from the negative perspective as well.
Yeah, but also Novo Nordisk market so much.
Yeah,
they market a hell of a lot. I mean, all the diabetes drugs are Novo Nordisk, you know, most of them anyway.
Yeah.
That I've ever been, you know, subject to anyway. But I think, yeah, Novo Nordisk, Danish company, different to Eli Lilly, which is a US company. So Novo Nordisk is actually listed. I believe it's listed as a. Is it listed as a main primary listing in the US, which might actually be the issue. So we then have to look at, and the reason why I'm highlighting that is the difference in share price. Where is its main liquidity base? Is it US or is it outside? If it's outside of the US, it might explain why Eli Lilly's outperforming.
Yeah.
Even if it does have an ADR on the NYSE.
Yeah. But forever and a day, pharma has made up massive portions of a stock portfolio, right? For many people's stock portfolios. I mean, they still remain particularly recession-proof, right?
I built a dashboard in healthcare. Is probably one of the sectors that I'm probably going to start getting really involved in over the next month or so. And then antagonist to that, I'm using antagonist quite a lot today. I really like that word. Is financials.
Yeah.
So you can have a relative value trade on selling the financials sector, which has had a really, really good,
you
know, first half of the year.
So obviously, it been earnings season. Financials have actually had really good earnings over the even though there's recessions, they've been, or recession fears, they've been particularly resilient.
Yeah, interest rates stayed higher, so net interest margin
Yeah.
for banks is how they make their money. You know, and if you think that interest rates are going to come down, you probably expect that banks are going to make less money. So that's the trade really for me, is buying healthcare if you do have a recessionary view, and then selling financials on the bet the interest rates come down.
We're better to leave it than there. So look, if you agree with us, if you're on Ozempic or Mounjaro, or, you know, if our guinea pig over here is going to be here in a couple of weeks, you know, let's see what happens. But main thing, the important point is make sure you like, subscribe, get our next episode into your inbox as soon as it comes in. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.